Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Transfer Portal's first gambling show of the year. Very exciting. We got a lot of stuff we're going to be doing this weekly. We're starting off this week with our futures and win total plays, and then next week we'll have week 0, week 1, and going on. So I'm joined by Andrew, and Matt. Guys, how you doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited for this show.
I'm ready to find ways to see how Vegas screws me over this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to win some money, and hopefully our followers who listen will tail us and follow money. So, Matt, I'll just throw it to you. Pretty much just give us whatever you like, what you're feeling. I know that you got a lot of plays up there because you've been writing tons of articles about this.
Hands down, my favorite play, just like in terms of if you want to bet to win some money, you're going to eat some juice on it. But Duke under 3.5. I think Duke's going to struggle to reach 2 wins, much less 4 wins. You're eating it juice. It's going to be, you're going to find it like minus 165 to 180 some places, but I just don't see any way this team wins 4 games.
Yeah, even with the juice, I like that because it's Duke football and they have a new head coach. They're completely restarting. We talked about them on our ACC preview. That's a good play for sure because I don't think they'll get to 4. And the ACC is kind of tough this year as it tends to be when they eat up each other. But yeah, I put that on the board. That's a great play.
Even their out of conference schedule, like they could win all 3 of those. Like I see them losing at least one of those, probably 2.
Yeah, betting on a first-year head coach with an awful program with not a ton of talent when you're in a Power 5 conference, the under is pretty nice, especially when it's 3.5 with Duke. I feel like that's even high, even for a low number.
Yeah, for sure. They're Duke. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously low, but how many games did they win last year?
Not a lot.
Yeah, I think they won 3 or 4. So it's like the number Vegas has the number right where it should be, and if they're giving juice, then it's probably going to go under.
Yeah, they won 3 last year.
Yeah, so look for them to repeat to win 3.
I think I'll actually go next because I have another team that's going to absolutely suck. I'm going to take Colorado. Right now, the number is 3. I got it at 2.5 for plus 120. I think this is going to be the worst team in the Power 5. Literally 0 talent on this team. They lost one of their better players in Jarek Broussard, who is now in Michigan State. They made one of the worst coaching hires in the country, bringing in Mike Sanford, who coached a below average offense with significantly more talent at Minnesota. I don't see how this Colorado team has anywhere close to getting 3 wins when they have an out of conference of Air Force, TCU, and Minnesota. And the Pac-12 is getting a little bit better year by year. Even the middle teams of the Pac-12, they're going to be half decent. They have Arizona State and Cal at home, I believe, and those are going to be 2 games that they have to win. I don't think they're going to beat Arizona State. Cal's definitely a closer game. I just don't see them getting to 3 wins.
Yeah, when I wrote my Pac-12 preview, this is like almost 2 months ago at this point, this number was at 3.5, and I said, this is easily my favorite play. Go hammer this under. There's no way this team gets to 3.5. So yeah, it's been consistently moving down, but I still think it's a good bet even where it is now.
Yeah, it went from 2.5 to 3 in the last few days, and I still love 2.5. Getting plus 120 on under 2.5 for a team I genuinely think could very well go 0-12. I love that.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go next. I'll take a team that's actually in my state and probably only about an hour and a half for me. I'm taking the under win total for Texas A&M at 8.5. And I got this at plus 140 off of my bookie. I feel like there's a lot of expectations for A&M going into this season. If you're in one of our chats, you saw that they were at number 3 for RJ Young's top 25. That is absolutely horrendous. It's a freaking joke. I was almost going to say the other F word, but I'm not trying to get us exploited. But I looked at A&M's schedule and the combination of everything with A&M. There's a lot of turnover in the defense. They lose a really good chunk of their front 7. They're going to have a very strong secondary, but they lost their top 2 corners. They lose guys like Leon O'Neal. They lose Isaiah Spiller. I just don't really trust A&M the way it is right now. I do think Evan Stewart could be a really good receiver for A&M, but just looking at A&M's schedule this year, it just looks brutal in the middle of it. They start the season against Sam Houston State, Appalachian State, and Miami of Florida. That could go 3-1. 3-0. They could go 2-1. It's a solid start for them either way. But then you have to go to Dallas to play Arkansas, a team that they lost against and borderline got slashed by, if you saw the game closely. Then they have to go to Mississippi State and Starkville. Will Rogers was among the best quarterbacks in college football last year. He was among the most efficient. I think he's going to have a really good season this year. I think that's a game that A&M loses. Then they have to go to Tuscaloosa at Alabama, and that is just – I'm just going to mark that as a loss. I don't even need to explain this. They get their bye, but then they have to go play Spencer Rattler in Columbia, South Carolina. That I don't know how much I have high hopes for on South Carolina this year, but I do feel like that there's going to be a new vibe with South Carolina this year. I think they are a talented enough team. They got some good transfers. I think they could give a lot of teams some really good hits. Then they have to go back to Kyle Field to play Ole Miss. I'm not the biggest Jackson Dart fan, but I love their backfield with Ulysses Bentley and Zach Evans. I think that is a game with a depleted front seven that A&M had last year. I think that they're going to be giving up a lot of yards. I'm not the biggest Max Johnson fan. I do think he's going to win that starting job. But then they have to go to Florida. They play against Florida at home. They'll probably win that. But then they have to go to Auburn. I could make a Brian Harsin joke, but I'm not going to right now. I think that's going to be a really tough game for A&M at Jordan Hare. Then they play UMass at home. Fine, mark that as a win. And then they stay at home with LSU. You could look at the schedule and you could say like, okay, that's a 9-3 schedule perhaps. But the way I look at it is it's going to be so much turnover from last year for A&M. I really do like A&M in 2 years in terms of 2021. I don't know where people are getting this hype from. I do like Jimbo, but this is not the squad for A&M to challenge in the SEC West.
Yeah, they are getting a ton of hype, and they constantly get hype year in year out, whether it be warranted or not. I do think this is a solid team. I think that's a smart play at plus 130, 140, whatever you can get it at, because they do have a tough schedule and they could easily lose 4 of those games. I think, again, I don't like to give credit to Vegas, but they have that number right where it should be. I think that's a very quality play, the under there, because I also don't really like Texas A&M, so that's something I'll dip my toes in. For me, my favorite win total of the year, I have it on 5 at 5 on DraftKings. I know it's probably consensus 5.5 in most places. I think this team wins 8 games. The Kent State Golden Flashes over win totals. I keep harping on Kent State. I have been doing it. And eventually when they do stink and I look like an idiot, I'm going to be very sad. No, I'm kidding. I love Kent State. I think that their schedule, they have a brutal 3-game stretch with Washington, Oklahoma, and Georgia. They have LIU mixed in there, so that'll get you 1 win. But you're looking at 3 losses in the first 4 weeks for them. But I just think that they're the most talented team in the MAC right now, outside of Central Michigan. I just think that I have them winning 8 games. I think over 5.5 is a great bet. The 5 is a little juicy at minus 140, minus 145, around that number. But it's worth the juice if you want, like, parlay it with another one that you like. That is my favorite win total. And I also think sprinkling them at plus 800, plus 900, whatever you can get it at, is a great play, because they have a legit shot to win the MAC and just light the entire conference on fire.
The MAC is kind of wide open too.
Yeah.
Like I have when I wrote it, I like Northern Illinois to win. That's another one of my plays. But any of 3 teams, maybe even 4 with Toledo could take that conference pretty easily.
Yeah, for sure. I have, because Kent State's my value play. I think I'm going to take Kent State at plus 800, and I'm going to take Central Michigan at plus 380 as the play, because I also really like Central Michigan. I think Matt Coyne's the best coach in the conference. I love Lou Nichols III. I think he's one of the best running backs in the country. So those would be my 2 plays. But yeah, Toledo and Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois could repeat. Rocky Lombardi scares me. Don't love him. But Toledo, Daquan Finn, any of those 4 teams, Central Michigan's a favorite at plus 380. So you can get any of those teams at a very good price. Let me see what those other teams at, because I have the sportsbook up right here.
Northern Illinois at a plus 510, 500 around there.
Yeah, but even then, that's a good price. Yeah, so right here, Toledo's the favorite at plus 360 on DraftKings. Miami, Ohio is second, which doesn't make – oh, wow, Central Michigan jumped to plus 425. I took it at plus 380, so that's on me. But Toledo plus 360, Central Michigan plus 425, Northern Illinois plus 550, Kent State plus 800. I mean, the MAC's a great conference, and if you're just like watching on a Tuesday, Wednesday, I like recommend picking a horse to start the season, being one of those 4 teams. But yeah, I'm this conference is going to be very good. But I'm on Kent State and Central Michigan.
You could even take 2 horses with the odds like that. You can just take 2 and still double your money.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I mean, I just think that Central Michigan is that's exactly. Take 3 if you want. It's just a great conference. Like I wouldn't say take more than 3, but yeah, those you're getting good odds across the board on pretty much every team.
So I'm going to go with another one. So me and you both like that one. I'm going to go with another one that I think you have, Andrew. Washington State over 5.5. You can get this one at plus money, and that's kind of crazy to me. So they're bringing in. So Cam Ward's there. Obviously, Cam Ward is amazing at football. He's a good Heisman pick for some people out there. And then the defense is an issue last year. They're bringing in Brian Ward from Nevada. And the Wolfpack have had good defenses 3 or 4 years running now. So if he can even give them anything on defense there, they're going to have a really good shot to get over 5.5.
Yeah, you're correct. I have Wazoo over 5.5 at plus 115. I don't know how this is a plus number. I feel like everybody in the country is hyping up Cam Ward right now. So, numbers a tad confusing there, but you know what? We'll take it. He's so talented. They bring in his former head coach at UIW to be the OC. I think that Jake Dickert's going to have a good first full season. Last year he coached half the season. This is going to be his first full year with the Cougars. I just think that this is a good team. I don't know how good we can say the Pac-12 is outside of like the top 3. I feel like everybody else can be on that like next tier down. Like even like the UCLA's, the Arizona's not in that tier, but Wazoo is like right in there. I feel like 5.5 is a good number to make a bowl. I would definitely take that at plus money.
I'm all over Cam Ward. I love him. I did not even this team and this number didn't even come to mind when I was looking at everything. I just kind of glossed him over because Washington State's all the way at the bottom of the board. But that's a play I'm for sure adding to my slate because I think that especially plus money, it's super tantalizing and I really like that play. So I'm for sure adding that.
I also sprinkle a little bit on them to win the conference because that's 40-1. Like bet $5 win 200. So like they're a good team. Obviously they're up against it with USC and Utah and Oregon up top. But if you're gonna pick on a long shot to win it, like just take a team with a great offense and in a place that's there's gonna be boat races every week. Take a team with a good offense and hope it turns out okay.
Yeah, they're 45-1 here on DraftKings. That's usually what I use. I mean, I'm sure the consensus is around 40, but yeah, that's a fun one. I mean, you might lose $5, but it's $5, and that's a fun one.
So, and I also think that Wazoo, with that talented offense, that every team needs to be scared of them. They play a team week 2, and I'm not just saying this because you're in the call, Andrew, but Wisconsin needs to be a tad bit worried about Wazoo. That's a fun offense, and I think that they have a chance to win almost every game that they play in. I'm going to move on to what, in my opinion, my favorite pick, and that's Maryland's. Last few days, numbers gone from 5.5 to 6. I had it originally at 5.5 minus 140. I've decided to change it to the 6 from minus 102. Better number. I'm just that confident in the Terps. They're going to have one of the best passing offenses in the country. Talia, he's good. They have one of the best wide receiver cores in the country that not enough people are talking about. Rakim Jarrett, Dante Demas, and Florida transfer Jacob Copeland. That's going to be an amazing offense to watch in a division where there's not a ton of great defenses. Now, Ohio State, we'll talk about them later. Right? I'm sure we all have something to do with them. Michigan is losing a decent amount on defense. Michigan State had the worst pass defense in the country last year. In fact, if I could bet on a game right now, I would say Maryland to take down Michigan State at whatever odds for Maryland money line. That's how much I love them. They're going to dominate Rutgers and Indiana. They play Northwestern in the Big Ten West. They have 3 games non-conference in SMU at home, which is probably the toughest one. And then I think like Charlotte and Buffalo are the other 2. I know Buffalo's one, not 100% on Charlotte. I'm very confident in 6. I think this could be an 8, maybe surprise 9-win team with what I think Loxley is going to be able to do. They're recruiting at a high level. There's a good amount of talent. If the defense can be a little bit better, I'm not asking for them to be a top 20 defense. I'm asking for them to be half competent. I think that this is a fun team. This is going to be one of those surprise teams in the Big Ten that there always seems to be. It's not going to be Penn State. Sorry, Dave. It's not going to be Michigan State like it was last year. I don't think we can call Michigan a surprise anymore. I think this year it's going to be Maryland's year. I love the Terps.
How many wins?
I would say right now 8. I'm very confident in that 6 number. If they won 9, I would not be shocked.
All right,
Yeah,
I'll go ahead. Go for it, Dave.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
just gonna say I had Maryland play too. That's also sorry.
Okay. I was gonna say I was gonna have another win total that I loved, but or someone hated. But I'm gonna go ahead and just stick in the Big Ten and pull my bets here. I'm gonna stay in the Big Ten, but this time I'm gonna go to the Big Ten West. And no, I'm not going the direction that you may think I'm going. I actually picked the Big Ten West winner, and I got that with Purdue at plus 600. And that may seem like a shock to a lot of people. That why would you pick Purdue to win the Big Ten West? A lot of it is value. Right now, I think Wisconsin's is at like at a minus like 117 or something like that in order to win the Big Ten West. Then it's like Iowa, then Minnesota, I think is third, and then Purdue is like fourth, which to me makes no sense because when I look at in terms of like offensive capabilities among all the teams in the Big Ten West, I have the most faith in Purdue. And whenever I look at Purdue, yes, they open up the season against Penn State, but they don't have to play guys like Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State. They stick to Big Ten West. They play the bottom half of the Big Ten East. And I look at Purdue and I look at a guy like Aiden O'Connell. Okay. And I think me and Andrew, we've spoken about before. We think he is the best quarterback in the Big Ten West. I don't think it's debatable at this point. They got a solid receiving core that really showed out against Tennessee in the Music City Bowl. I look at Purdue's schedule, and to me, it's a very winnable schedule. They open up the season against Penn State, but they get that game at home. If it was at Happy Valley, I'd probably think twice. But when they got Penn State at home at Ross-Ade, it makes me feel a little bit better. They're only a 3-point underdog against the Nittany Lions. I really do like Purdue at that +3. Then they got to go to Minnesota to open up conference play. They got to go to Maryland. That could be a tough game, but that could be the highest scoring Big Ten game of the season. Then they have to play at home against Nebraska. I am not the biggest Nebraska believer going into this season. I think this is just to take a time bomb for Nebraska. They got to go to Wisconsin, which will be obviously really tough on Aiden and that receiving core. But the Badgers, they got a really, really young secondary when guys like Colin, while they're leaving, Fayon Hicks, Caesar Williams, this is going to be a really, really young secondary for Wisconsin that even their most experienced secondary player from last season that's returning, he's switching over to wide receiver. So Jim Leonard needs to get that secondary to step up against Purdue, against Aiden. Then they got to go against Iowa. I am the least believer in Iowa this season. I don't trust any team that's got Spencer Petras. You give me 2 teams to win the division. You give me one team with Aiden O'Connell. You give me another team with Petras. I don't care what the other circumstances are. I'm taking the team with Aiden O'Connell every single time, no matter what the odds are. Then they end the season with at Illinois versus Northwestern and then at Indiana. This is a very winnable schedule for Purdue. Last year's Big Ten West, Iowa won with a 10-2 record, and it came down to the very end of the season that even had Purdue with a chance to make it. I like this Purdue team a lot, and I think they have a really, really good shot to make some noise in the Big Ten West. And like I said, at that plus 600 number, that almost feels like a steal to win that division.
This was a play I loved when the division numbers came out. And then we found out Milton Wright was academically ineligible, and it hurt a little bit.
But remember, he didn't even play that Music City Bowl either.
When it came out, they were at plus 400. So obviously we're getting a little value for him being out. But they still have a solid receiver core, even with him being out. They have Payne Durham at tight end, who's going to be a safety blanket over the middle for Aiden O'Connell. And I agree, Aiden O'Connell's easily the best QB in that division. Like, it's pretty much hands down. And then Tyrone Tracy Jr., chance from Iowa, I think he's going to put up some big numbers because he's going to be stepping into a pretty big role, which he hadn't had at Iowa before. And I think he's going to be able to do some things out there.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Big Ten West odds right now. It's Wisconsin plus 170, Nebraska plus 240. I'll talk about that.
That's ridiculous. I saw that and I literally wanted to buy it. You could not tell me, Vegas, why is Nebraska the second best team in the Big Ten West?
They're sipping the Nebraska Kool-Aid like they do every year. It's insane. I don't understand it. They have Iowa plus 500. Actually, fourth team right now is Purdue at plus 600. Minnesota's at plus 650. So odds have actually quite changed over the last few days from last time I checked this. But yeah, I like the Purdue play as a value. I'm not going to touch Wisconsin because I don't really care for the value with Graham Mertz at quarterback. Some people think he's.
I really don't. I'll bring the Wisconsin side out. I am done with the pain. I am done with the optimism since 2019. I think it was. Yeah. I just can't take it no more. I have zero reason to believe in this season.
I think the two best value plays in this division are Purdue and Minnesota by far. Nebraska, I'm sorry, I'm not going to trust
value.
you.
That's
ever.
the worst value.
I would rather bet Northwestern at plus 10,000. I don't think that's an outlandish take because we know Pat Fitzgerald can turn it on like that.
Yeah, it's literally when he decides to. It's when he decides to sell his soul to the devil.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe he's coming for a refund. I don't know. Illinois at plus 3,000. I would honestly rather take the Nebraska. I think Illinois is an underrated team. I'm not going to take a total with them. Chase Brown's one of the better running backs in the conference, in a conference that's loaded with running backs. I'd say he's probably close to that top 5 range. Nebraska plus 240 is insanity.
Yeah, that's a crazy line. I don't know. Nebraska, everything Scott Frost gets this hype around him, and they want every game they lost was like within a touchdown, but still, like, good teams win those games. And I don't really see much turnover from last year to this year to where they're a conference contender. The
only upside is they upgraded a quarterback from Adrian to Casey Thompson. Like, that's it. And even then, with that system, you still cannot convince me like how that's going to be a massive improvement, because now you're giving Casey a much worse roster than what he had last year in Texas.
And I'm going to jump in for a second. Nebraska under 7.5 is one of my plays at minus 108. I don't know how you can't not take this. Can't not take this. Yes, that's correct. Yes, they upgraded at a few positions. They used the transfer portal. Yes, Matt, I know the wording was weird. They upgraded at quarterback. I don't understand why people think Casey Thompson's like this amazing quarterback. Oh my gosh, he led Texas to 5 wins, or not even that, because Hudson Card initially had the job. Yes, he played amazing against Oklahoma. Can we look at the rest of his stats the rest of the year? There were a lot of games where he was very suspect, had some
when I saw
very
him
weird
against Oklahoma
decisions.
State on purpose.
Oh, he was awful.
Yeah, he was terrible. Like, I literally, like, it was so bad. Like, Xavier Worthy actually made him look good. That's how bad he was.
Yeah. I mean, Xavier Worthy is a phenomenal receiver.
I mean, he's fantastic, but when you need a receiver to make yourself look good, I mean, that's not anywhere near a praise.
And you talked about it. He's not going to have Xavier Worthy at Nebraska. He's not going to have Bijan Robinson at Nebraska. He's not going to have Steve Sarkisian at Nebraska. He's going to have lesser talent, lesser offensive coaching. You can say what you want about Mark
defense.
Whipple.
That's the most underrated aspect.
Oh,
he's going to.
Yeah. He has 3 top 20 defenses in his division, and we don't know how Michigan's going to bounce back, but they'll probably still field a very good defense. He's going to face so many good defenses. You can say what you want about Big 12 defenses. They're not amazing. He did play a few good ones last year. He played Oklahoma State, obviously, which was probably the second or third best behind Wisconsin and Georgia. He's got 3 in his division that he's going to play in the last month of the year. That Nebraska November is Michigan in no order. I can't remember the order. Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa. That's an easy 0-4 in my opinion. That's an easy 0-4. That puts you at 8-4.
As much as I gave Iowa earlier, I will admit they will always put up a strong front seven. They always will. And Jack Campbell will be one of the more underrated inside linebackers going into the season. Wisconsin, like I said it before, Jim Leonhard, he's always gonna get his defense ready. Since he took over as Wisconsin defensive coordinator in 2018, he's only had one season. No, 2017 he took over. He only had one season where they did not finish top 5 nationally in total defense. That defense, along with Iowa, and I really do believe Michigan is still going to be strong this year. I don't think they're going to be last year. They still have Aiden or some of those other front 7 guys, but that Michigan's always going to put up a strong defense. We always do. Casey's going to be eaten alive when he goes to some of these Midwest towns in November.
Yeah, I think their absolute maximum is 7-5, and that's like everything is clicking. Scott Frost has worked miracles. He's done some shady stuff to get stuff done. I think that this could very well be a 5-17, and people saying, oh, they lost by 1 possession 8 out of the 9 times. I don't freaking care. Would you rather go 0-12 and lose every game by 1 point, or go 3-9 and lose? Like, it doesn't matter. A loss is a loss. You can say, oh, well, they were close, but no cigar. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. This is football, not either of those 2 things. I don't care about any of that. A loss is a loss. Take it on the chin, get better so you can win those games.
I think I'm on board now. I think you've fully convinced me to take the Nebraska under.
I wouldn't bet it while you guys were talking. So yeah, I'm convinced.
Yeah, no, I was going to touch it. Now I'm like, all right, fine. Yeah, I'll throw it in. I'm going to jump to the ACC. am pretty much all over the Miami Hurricanes any which way. I want over 8.5. I want to win a division. I want over 5.5 conference wins, and I want them to win the ACC. Plus 550 is a little value sprinkle. But to go back to that like kind of main point, the over 8.5, it's one of the better totals on the board, I believe, because their schedule just isn't. It's not super tough. I think you got non-guaranteed wins in there. Bethune-Cookman, win. Southern Miss, win. I'll give it to A&M benefit of the doubt. Middle Tennessee State,
but that's going to be a lot closer than people think.
They could very well beat A&M, but I'll benefit of the doubt if we're just going numbers here.
It's at Kyle Field, so.
Well, remember A&M lost against Mississippi State at Kyle Field last year. I don't really think. I mean, look, that game that I went to last year, Kyle Field was a fortress, but I don't think the roster is going to overlook what the atmosphere is. I think Miami's going in with a really strong shot.
Yeah, I mean, you could even give them a win. So you know what? I'll say they win. Let's go with 4 now. We'll go with 4. So then UNC 5, beat Virginia Tech 6, Duke 7, Virginia 8, Florida State. They could start off 9-0 legitimately. If they're not going to be 9-0, they'll be 8-1. And then they have 3 games to play to get you that 9th win, and they'll beat Georgia Tech, and I think they'll beat Pitt to get into the ACC championship game. The Clemson game, I think it go both ways. I am going to be more. I mean, we'll find out. That game's November 19th. I think Van Dyke's better than Ungalele. I don't think. I just think that's going to be the X factor. Tyler Van Dyke's going to be so gosh darn good this year. But like that's. I mean, they could start the season off 9-0, if not 8-9, and you will get at least one of those 3 games as a win. So I mean, I think they could go 11-1, 10-2. Yeah, I love that play. And then they'll get in, and I think they'll beat Clemson the second time to win me my plus 550. And if they only lose that Clemson game, then you also get that over conference wins, and then you get the division win. And then Miami's bringing me a ton of money. And that's kind of where I love them. I think that pretty much any which way you can bet Miami in the future market, go for it because it's good value.
It's no secret that I love Miami. I've already bet all of those, and I will one-up you one more. I also bet Tyler Van Dyke to win the Heisman. He's anywhere around 30 to 40 to 1. If you're looking at the middle of the board, so you stay away from the top 3, I think he's the best play along the middle of the board. I love – he's so good. He was the second best quarterback in the country pretty easily, in my opinion, over the second half of last season. He was phenomenal last year. He threw for like 350 a game and like a 24-2 touchdown interception ratio. He was absurd last year. Then if we want to stay in the ACC, a bet I liked a lot more before we found out about Sam Hartman was Clemson under 10.5.
Mm-hmm.
I still like it. It's not as much of a smash as I thought it was because their schedule is pretty tough besides that they have 4 road games. But I still like that value under 10.5. I just don't think DJ is a good enough quarterback to win 11 games.
And the thing with DJ is he could be bad enough where everyone's calling Dabo to pull him. Do we think Dabo's going to pull him after how hard he's been defending him?
No.
He has a very talented backup in Cade Klubnik who will end up taking the reins, if not next year, later this year. But by that time, is it too late to save that total?
The 10.5, let's see. So they'll probably win that game. They'll beat Georgia Tech, Furman, La Tech, the Wake Forest. I mean, I loved Wake Forest, and the news about Sam Hartman sucks so much because I was all over them. But yeah, I mean, that would have been I mean, I'll give them the win against Wake Forest before now. They could lose to NC State, the BBC. They could. I mean, they'll lose to Notre Dame, I think, and then they lose to Miami. Yeah, that under a nice play. But do you know the odds on that? Is it like kind of like 120, 110 like usual, or
was it minus 150 before Wake Forest, before Sam Hartman? I think it's at minus 125, 130 now.
I mean, it's not terrible value. It's not super juicy either, so it could be a move.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw it back a little bit to what we were talking about, Casey Thompson. And speaking of 5-7 records, I'm going to go just down the street to Austin for me, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the under 8.5 on the Texas Longhorns. I saw some of these preseason ballots come in. Shout out Brett McMurphy and him having like Texas in his top 20, and I'm just like, where the hell are people getting this from? We obviously just got the news today about them losing a linebacker and them losing their senior offensive lineman that was massive. Losing Isaiah Nayer, the junior wide receiver, and a junior Angilau. I'm pretty sure I butchered that horribly. If he's watching this, I sincerely apologize. I'm Mexican. I don't know these types of names. But anyways, I look at Texas this year and I'm just like, whoa, just chill the fuck out, man. Like, come on. Like, 8.5. Like, you really want me to believe that they're going to go for 9 wins this season? They do not have the easiest of schedules this year. They obviously got Alabama in the second week at home. I just think it's gonna be a total mismatch. I really do like Quinn a lot. I think he's got a really bright future. I think next year he could be among the best quarterbacks in college football. But at the same time, this is his first season. He's technically he's never played a game. He's gonna be a redshirt freshman this year, and him going against a playoff finalist last year in Alabama and against Nick Saban, like, that is not the way to start your career. And I really like Donovan Smith a lot for Texas Tech. They go to Lubbock in late September. They got to go obviously play Oklahoma on the Red River. That's honestly a really, really tough game because I'm not the biggest believers in Oklahoma this year either. I think Iowa State could be a team that, like, even though they lost guys like Charlie Booker and Brock Purdy, I actually think that this is an Iowa State team that I think could actually be improved. Really, I don't think they're going to take that step back. And they obviously got to go to Stillwater against Oklahoma State. That's a tough game. They got to go to Kansas State. I'm expecting Deuce Vaughn to absolutely slash up that Texas defense once that game comes by. Then they got to go against TCU. TCU, they bring back a lot of returning starters. I think TCU could be a sneaky team in terms of that could be Texas. We could obviously throw on the jokes for at Kansas, but then they end the season on Baylor. I just don't know if you could sell me on Texas to improve 4 games from last year to go from 5 wins to 9 in one season. I like Quinn a lot. He's an upgrade over Casey. Bijan and Xavier's still there, but they just got some injury news today. This is just not it for Texas. It's the same thing in what I said about A&M. They'll be good soon. This is just not the season for it to happen.
Yeah, losing Isaiah Nayer really hurts them because that was going to be that massive 1-2 punch at wide receiver with him and Xavier Worthy.
Oh, Aggie Hall too. How can we forget about that news? I mean, is he even going to be eligible? How many more strikes can he get until he's suspended?
I also wasn't the biggest fan of him at Alabama. And also the Jaleel Billingsley. I don't think anybody's surprised that, he's probably not going to play. I mean, we saw the saying in the stars when he was with Saban, and Saban essentially saying he just wouldn't do anything. He's just not practicing. So I don't think anybody's surprised with that. So those transfers from Alabama, not going to work out for Texas. But yeah, losing Nayer really hurts. I think Quinn's going to be good, but man, how great it would have been to have that 1-2 punch. You got X on one side, Nayer on the other, Bijan in the backfield, a talented quarterback in Quinn. I'm probably going to agree with you. If Nayer was still healthy, I would probably not touch it. But it's making me think, like, yeah, can they improve 4 games for, possibly upgrading? We haven't seen Quinn Ewers throw a pass in college football yet. That's another thing. I would like to see Bijan get better in pass pro before I, say, oh my gosh, he's the best player in college football, which he's not, but he's dang good.
I'd like to see how healthy he is going into the season. Like, he's my RB1 in the country, no doubt about it. I think he still beats out Travion, but I just want to know, like, how healthy is he going to stay this season?
Yeah, he had a little bit of a problem last year. But Texas, yeah, this is just I wouldn't call it a rebuilding year because they do have a lot of pieces on the way. It's a bridge year. This is a bridge year to get yourself to success. I don't think it's this year. 2023, look for them to be pretty dang good. Nayer will be back. Obviously, Bijan and X will be off to the NFL, but still got a lot of talent. So Texas, don't be bad. Don't be sad, but yeah, I don't know if they're.
Well, Xavier, he'll be there next year.
He was a freshman.
Yeah, he was a freshman last year. He's a true sophomore this year.
I thought he was a redshirt.
No, he's true.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he won the True Freshman Award last year.
Oh, then that's my bad. Okay, yeah, he is. Yeah, so they'll have that receiver core back in 2023.
So there you go. I just helped you improve your own argument. Thank you. Thank me later.
The Texas news actually strengthened one of my favorite like long shot to win a conference bets, and that's TCU to win the Big 12. That offense is going to be really good, especially they lose Zach Evans obviously, but that running back room is still good, and the wide receiver trio is about as strong as it gets in the country. Their defense obviously could be an issue, but they have a new DC this year. Hopefully, he can figure it out. But I think like just in terms of value, them at plus 1,400 is a crazy number.
It is, but this is a first year head coach with Sonny Dykes. This is still not his players yet. He obviously just came from across the city at SMU. I would have taken TCU if Gary Patterson was still there with his exact same team, but this is just a new identity for TCU. It's just hard for me to get behind it. I took Baylor at plus 560 to win the Big 12 again. They're returning a lot of starters. I think they're returning 14 starters from last season, and they're the fourth best odds to win the conference behind Oklahoma, Texas, and I even forgot who the third team was.
Okie State.
There you go. And Oklahoma State. And I even liked Oklahoma State's play. I'm just not the biggest fan of Spencer as a quarterback, but I did like Baylor a lot. Jerry Bohannon, I just think he was deadwood. It was, he really wasn't that great of a quarterback in the Big 12 last year. That's why he's going to be playing in the wishing well of the AAC with the USF now this season. This is still a really talented Baylor roster. Dave Aranda's still there. Dave Aranda, I'm pretty sure a lot of people were shocked that he decided to stay, but I don't think he would have left for another team if he didn't know that if he didn't think that he wasn't going to have success in Waco. This is a Baylor team that I still think is going to be really good. And the biggest thing about the Big 12 this year is, I think a lot of people are looking at teams like Oklahoma and Texas, and they're thinking, okay, they're still a really young team. They may have the two best odds, and they may have the best rosters, but do they have the best teams? Do they, you look at Baylor last year, that was a team that just felt complete from top to bottom. And I just think Dave Aranda is building a really strong identity in Waco, and that's why I'm going with Baylor to repeat as Big 12 champs. But this is a really wide open Big 12. Baylor came out of nowhere last year to win the conference. I think I would not be surprised if we saw TCU win it. Like I said, I like Sonny Dykes. I thought he really changed the identity while he was at SMU. I think he's got the opportunity to do something of similar stature while he's at TCU. But I think TCU will have a very strong season. I would not be surprised if it was TCU versus Baylor in Dallas and Arlington for the Big 12 title game.
Only thing that worries me with Baylor is they don't return much production at all. I want to say they're bottom 20 in the country for returning production. So that does worry me.
They did have 14 starters return. Now, granted, it's not that they played every game, but they still return a really good chunk of experience. It is bottom 20, but it's how do I say this? It's a lot of teams in the Big 12. It felt like everybody lost talent at the same time in the Big 12, besides TCU.
Yeah, the Big 12 is definitely wide open. That's going to be a fun one. I think, TCU, again, I'm getting talked into that once again. You guys are talking me into these plays. I'm going to move out of the Big 12, but I'm going to stay in the state of Texas. I'm going to give two of my favorite teams this year. I am on Houston to win the AAC plus 250 and Texas San Antonio. There it is. To win Conference USA plus 210. I think those are two of the better not super great value, but I mean, I'm probably throw like a unit and a half, 2 units on them because I just think those two teams are electric. Also, I'm taking Houston over 9 wins because this team could legitimately go 12-0 in regular season play, I feel like. So I think 9 is pretty nice. And they don't play Cincinnati, and Cincinnati, I'm very curious to see how they'll play without Ritter. But I think it's Houston's conference this year. I just think they're finally going to get over that hump and beat Cincinnati. I'm super excited about this team. I love Holgerson. I love Clayton Tune. And them over 9 plus 250 for me. And then, again, I'm going to take the Roadrunners plus 210. That one, I might be giving a best bet for that in this futures show. The Roadrunners to win their conference because they're just going to blow everybody out. And that's another team I'm excited to watch this year.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to jump on the piggyback on the UH to win the AAC for no particular reason whatsoever. But I think this is UH's best team probably since I think this team has an opportunity to be better than what they were in 2015 when they won the Peach Bowl against Florida State. I think in terms of UH's returning talent, and particularly on the offensive side, with Clayton Tude, Tank Dell, while Alton McCaskill is going to be injured to start the season, you'll see guys like Brandon Campbell, who was among the top running back recruits of 2021. He transfers in from USC, goes back to his hometown in Houston. The Houston schedule this year sets them more than nicely to win over 9 games. They start the season off at UTSA. I think UTSA, they lost a lot in their front seven. Besides Rashad Wisdom, they did lose quite a bit in their secondary. Also, that's going to be a really, really young team for UTSA. I think UH goes in there, and I think they'll beat UTSA by about 2 touchdowns. They go to Lubbock the next week. Like I said earlier, I really like Donovan Smith a lot, and UH historically struggles against Texas Tech. I'm not going to mark that as a loss, but I do think that they do have enough talent to beat Tech. Then they got Kansas at home. To me, don't even bother. I'm going to ignore the team that's across the city that starts with the R. And I don't know who put up the schedule for U of H for this season, but whoever it is, they must have UH to win the conference since last year. They just took last season's schedule and they just flipped between home and away in the AAC. They don't play Cincinnati. They don't even play UCF. They don't even play the top 2 dogs in the AAC that are not themselves, which is insane to me. For 2 straight years, you don't get those guys in the regular season. They still got to play Tulane, Memphis, Navy, South Florida, SMU, Temple, East Carolina, and Tulsa to end the season. This is not a strong enough conference. There's a reason why Houston's getting out of this conference next year. My one concern with the schedule is that they have to go to Memphis and have to go to SMU. SMU is a place where Houston has historically struggled. Granted, SMU did lose quite a bit in the receiving core with Reggie Roberson and Danny Gray. Ulysses Bentley is obviously now in Ole Miss. This is Rhett Lashley's first season as head coach at SMU. I think it's going to be a pretty inexperienced SMU team. Their defense is what costed them in the latter half of the season last year because they had a hot start up until Halloween last year. I think Houston has more than enough to get the double-digit wins. I think they're going to get the double-digit wins with these. I think they'll actually finish 11-1, even though I really think they want to go for that 12-0. And in terms of Cincinnati, it's essentially a brand new defense going into next season. That's the first concern. Ritter's no longer there. But I would really watch out for Evan Prater. He's been sitting behind Ritter for about 2 years now. I think he's ready to take the keys for Luke Fickell, and I think he's got a really good opportunity to make a showing. I mean, he's 6'4". He's a dual threat guy. He was among the top recruits in the state of Ohio when he was going into college. I think he's going to be really good. I think we're going to see a UH-Cincy matchup in Houston to end AAC play. But I know that the UH guys, they want Cincy in their backyard. And I think they will take that win here at home and they'll be AAC. And for them to be plus 250 compared to Cincinnati's like plus 100 or whatever it is at some other books is an insult. If it's plus 190, I mean, it's still an insult. There's absolutely nothing you can do to convince me that Cincinnati's roster this year equates better than Houston. Cincinnati still has to play UCF this year. Houston does not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's one of the better futures on the market. I'm very excited about this team. And that 9 number, like you said, they played 2 tough games. If they lose those 2 tough games, they're still over the 9 number with 10 wins. And I think they'll win both those games. So I just think that's one of my favorite bets, over 9. I'm all over the Cougs this year.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on. I actually got them at over 9.5 plus 115. So I'm extremely confident in them to get double-digit wins. I also have them winning the AAC. But with Cincinnati, you talked about Evan Prater. I'm really wondering how they're going to replace Jerome Ford. He was a workhorse in that offense. He's now working for the Cleveland Browns in the preseason. But I'm wondering how they're going to replace that run game, because I don't think we can expect Evan Prater to completely match Desmond Ritter's ability right away. So how are they going to be able to match the running game, especially in this AAC where, Houston is going to be the top dog. And I think that this is a team that could go 11-1. So that's why I like the over 9.5 number for them. So I'm going to jump back to the Big Ten, where I'm going to take a win total that's actually been decently popular. I'm going to take Minnesota over 7.5. This is a team where their biggest loss is offensive line, but they made a lot of work in the transfer portal. Ariante Ursary is a name that I've heard a lot of from some people. A lot of guys are high on him. They have one of the worst non-conference schedules in the entire country. They play New Mexico State, arguably one of the worst teams in the FBS, Western Illinois, which is a low-tier FCS team, and Colorado. I've already said I think they could go 0-12. They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Michigan. I think that every game for them, this is not going to say 12-0. I think every game is winnable. Their toughest games are obviously the 2 trophy games, Wisconsin and Iowa. Then they have to go to East Lansing week 4 to play Michigan State, and they have to go to Penn State for the whiteout. That's going to be a tough one just because of the environment. I don't think Penn State's going to be all that great. Once again, sorry, Dave. But 7.5 for a team that returns pretty much everyone except for one massive contributing full season skill position player on the offensive side of the ball in Ko Kieft. They return everybody that did something wide receiver. They return one of the best running backs in the country when he's healthy, Mo Ibrahim. Is Tanner Morgan a good quarterback? He's not the worst. He's not the best by any means. I'm not going to say, with Kirk's Rock come back, he's going to be 2019 for him. I'm going to say, hopefully he throws less picks, a little bit better completion percentage, maybe a few more touchdowns. I'm not asking for him to have a insane touchdown INT ratio, just asking for consistency. I don't want those stupid picks like I saw last year. I want to see like what he did in the first half against Nebraska this year, where he broke the Minnesota record for, most consecutive completions in a game. So Minnesota over 7.5. I think especially with me and Andrew already talked about, we're both very low on Iowa this year. I think that offense is going to be disgusting. Every time I watch them, I'm going to have to pour 2 gallons of bleach in each one of my eyeballs so I can hopefully erase that from my memory. But I think the defense will still be good. Joe Rossi's one of the best defense coordinators in the country. Hopefully the offense is fine. I think 7.5 for a team that's coming off an 8-win season and getting their best player back. It's a pretty low number at -127.
Yeah, I mean, you're the Minnesota expert. So, I mean, I'm not shocked you took the over. I feel like you wouldn't be taking an under. But yeah, I don't want to say I like Minnesota because of what they did to me a while ago with Sean Clifford being bad. But I mean, yeah, they're another solid team. Like the Big Ten West is pretty solid this year. It's the Big Ten. Their slip-ups happen all the time. But yeah, I think that 7.5 is again right where they should be at. I think they'll win 7-8 games, and I trust you that they'll get that 8th game.
And one more thing I do want to add. People will always talk about Minnesota's, kryptonite, and that's Brett Bielema. Well, one of their strengths since PJ Fleck has been a head coach is winning off of buys. They get Brett Bielema off a bye this year. They have produced a homecoming game. Then they have a bye. Then it's Illinois. I think that's going to set up well. Illinois is not an amazing team. I think that this is probably the year that they finally get rid of that Brett Bielema curse. Whatever the record is, whether they lost to Purdue
to be fair, I mean, come on, let's chill out. I mean, a Brett Bielema Wisconsin is different than a Brett Bielema Illinois.
Well, we also lost to Brett Bielema Illinois last year.
Oh, well, that's a good point. Well, that's on y'all.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's not like, and also I just want to get this out of the way. That was the worst loss we had last year.
Not even the Bowling Green loss.
You know what? People talk about that loss. I don't care. Like, yeah, it sucked. We were 31.5-point dogs. It was one of the biggest upsets in college football last year. But losing to Bowling Green, I would lose to Bowling Green 10 times out of 10 if we could have beaten Illinois. Because if we beat Illinois, we go to Indy. So that's just my reasoning for that.
I'm going to move over into a couple Heisman bets.
Ooh.
I already talked about Tyler Van Dyke. I have one favorite and one long shot. Caleb Williams is my favorite. He's around plus 550 to plus 650. In terms of skill talent around him, he has just phenomenal skill around him. And I'm not convinced, I'm a USC fan, I'm not convinced the Trojans are going to blow away the football world like everyone thinks. But if they do, and they're 10-2, 11-1 in the college football playoff discussion, Caleb Williams is going to win the Heisman almost strictly off a narrative, just because he brought USC back from the brink, and that'll be the narrative, and that's how he'll win. The other one's a longer shot. It's Malik Cunningham. Yeah, he's around 100-1 now. When I bet him, he was at 60-1, so I feel a little dumb about that. But he's at 100-1 now most places, and I just think in terms of electricity at that value around that side of the board, he's one of the most electric players in the country. He's just phenomenal to watch, and I think if they can put what
I was just gonna say, the only concern that I have about Malik Cunningham about him, because I think he's a phenomenal player. He's obviously was leading passer and leading rusher for Louisville last year. The issue that I have with Malik Cunningham, with him making to New York, is the team around him. Obviously, you picked Caleb Williams because of the roster that he has with them, and obviously with guys like Jordan Addison there and playing with a coach that he obviously knows very well with Lincoln Riley. With Malik Cunningham, we're talking about the absolutely most polar opposite you can imagine. And I'm surprised the number that nobody brought up during this whole time was Louisville's win total right now is at 5.5.
I think we were on the over on the ACC preview.
We were both on the over on that.
Yeah. I had them winning 6 games.
I believe in Malik. I don't believe in Louisville. I believe in Malik. That's why I want to.
He's electric, but again, it's kind of like, I'm not saying he's as good as Lamar Jackson was, but Lamar was, you could argue he's the best college quarterback of all time, and that team just wasn't very good around him. So, if Malik can get Louisville to where they need to be, if they win 9 games somehow, then he will absolutely be in the conversation. But can he get them there? He's talented enough, but are the guys around him talented enough?
Yep.
I'm going to Pac-12. I know you're a USC fan, real quick. I know they're the favorites. I'm on Utah to win the Pac-12. I just think that they won it last year. I just think that they're all the hype around USC. Everyone's USC's back. Oh, they're finally good again. Yeah. Utah is still a very, very good football team. You could argue they're the best team in the conference. And that number, I believe I got it at 210 around there. Let me double check that. Conference winner. Yeah, plus 240. The 3 teams are USC, Utah, Oregon, plus 220, plus 240, plus 280. Utah is my favorite out of that. But then again, we have Washington State in there at 40 to 45 to 1. So that's probably just the one I'm going to root for.
I would agree. The hype on USC is absurd, but and obviously they have a bunch of phenomenal players, but they've also most of them never played together, so it wouldn't surprise me if it took a little bit for them to gel. So I agree, Utah's a good play.
Also, USC at Utah this year, and that's probably the biggest pivot in terms of that conversation.
Yeah. We remember last year it was Oregon at Utah, and that was a game.
They played football.
Yeah, Oregon played football. It wasn't good football, but it was football.
All right. I know we kind of preluded to earlier, but the one team that I feel like some of us may have on our betting cards this season, this one's kind of my grand finale. It ain't the most value, it ain't the most winning back, but this is I think something that I think needs to be said. I got Ohio State winning the whole thing this year at plus 300. I think this is a team top to bottom. I think they can go 15-0 this year. I think they're that talented. We'll see. I think CJ Stroud's going to come out with vengeance this year. This is going to be a much improved Ohio State defense. Some guys like Zach Harrison decided to come back. I really love Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., a lot of those guys that are really going to step up. Travion, obviously. CJ, I actually think CJ was the best quarterback. I would have taken him over Bryce Young last year wholeheartedly. It was just a bad, team showing against Michigan that costed him that Heisman. I just look at Ohio State, and I just think they have the ability to outscore literally everybody that's on their schedule, even come playoff time, come conference time. Whether if they play at Purdue, Wisconsin, Minnesota in that Big Ten title game, I would just tell the Big Ten West team to not even show up. Y'all gonna get that 59-0 beating that Ohio State gave in 2014. This is really a talented Ohio State team. I think this is going to be the most electric offense in college football, and I think we're slightly going into a way of, as we saw a couple times, especially with LSU in 2019, just whoever can outscore the other opponent is probably going to win the game. That's the most obvious thing to say. But I think when it comes to Ohio State's offense and how good that it is from top to bottom, I think it's the best offense put together in the country. and I have full faith in them to win the whole thing at the end of the year. And plus 300 is probably not the best value, but it's what I believe is the winning value.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm on them as well. I found them a plus 350. I think you can say whatever you want about the defense. I think Jim Knowles is going to work magic there with what he did last year at Oklahoma State. Now he's going to get a lot more talent at Ohio State. I trust that to be a top 30 defense. My one question about this is, can Ryan Day do it? I know everybody on the team can. I know Jim Knowles can. He's, an amazing defense coordinator. Can Ryan Day get over that? Because I feel like that's something we've been questioning. Not even just the whole Jim Harbaugh calling him a coach that was born on third base instead of hitting a triple. Can he do it himself? Or is he going to, have that effect where, he's playing Saban in the championship game? Because I feel like a lot of us expect that to be the championship game. Is he going to get outclassed like he did in 2020? Now, granted, 2020 Alabama was one of the best teams I've seen in a while. I just don't know if he can do it. I trust them. I'm on them to win the national title, but that's just my one question. I trust the players and Jim Knowles entirely.
Yeah, as much as this pains me to say, and it's kind of more of like a hate bet for me than it is me going to be rooting for them. I'm also on Ohio State. I took them at plus 320. They moved down to plus 300 because that's, again, not a ton of value on it, like you said, Andrew, but it is the most valuable play because taking Alabama is kind of like you're getting $14 you get 14 to your 10. Like it's not really worth the value. Ohio State is, in my opinion, the best team in the country. I will be rooting very heavily against them every single week. But I took them plus 300 to win it all. And my value that I took, because I like throwing value picks out, again, a Utah to make the playoff plus 425. Just because I was bored, I took them plus 6,000 to win the whole thing, just because that'd be awesome. But yeah, Ohio State plus 300 is my national champion pick.
I agree. When I wrote up the Big Ten West last week, my first was welcome to the Big Ten West, where 5 teams have a chance to win the right to lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. They're that good.
Yeah.
You could probably get the Big Ten West All-Stars and they would still lose by 20.
Yeah, this team is just like, two of my best friends with Ohio State. So like we go every year, flip-flop Penn State, Ohio State. And so I watch them. I follow them just to be like, oh, I hope they lose. Like I hate watching them. This team has the potential to be the best one that I've seen in my, 7 years of like following them closely. They're going to be just an absolute force. It's going to be, they're dangerous. So on that note, from all of us at the Transfer Portal Gambling Show, thank you for listening. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next week for week 0 when we get spreads, money lines, totals. Have a good night, guys.